Good evening. Welcome to the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commissioner Board of Commissioners meeting study session on August 2nd, 2023, 6 p.m. Welcome everybody. And I don't believe we have anyone wishing to speak at public forum. So our next item on the agenda is we have a vacant APRC commissioner's seat because Leslie Eldridge has officially resigned, and she will be taking the interim director, Parks and Recreation director position effective August 21st. So that means we need to replace her. And I am recommending that we use the same process we used a year and a half ago when Mike Gardner's position became open. We have an application form. We have a press release. You know, we're really basically ready to go. And so I'm recommending we use those and that we get started. It's gonna be a little tricky because to be within the 60 days because of when Leslie Eldridge resigned, we can't make it to the October meeting. We're gonna have to either do it at our regular meeting in September, or if we're not ready, hopefully we'll be, but if we're not ready, then we'll have to have a special meeting. So this behooves us to figure out a way of being prepared. And the process last time was we had a application period. I'm recommending we do that for 2 weeks this time around. And we get the applications, and then we do interviews and do it the same way we did before. We'll do two commissioners and two commissioners, each interviewing each candidate. At the end of that process, we will do, I'm recommending that we do this a little different. Before, we had everybody rank and turn in the rankings ahead of time. This time, I'm suggesting that we just do the interviews, and then we come to the meeting, and everybody, makes their case and argument for whoever they think would be the best person. And then after having an open discussion, we'll have people nominate or make motions for the commissioner. We vote on it, and as soon as we have a majority, then for a candidate, then we're done. Any questions or comments on this process?
Where did the interview questions for the candidates come from?
We actually have that list from before, and it seemed to work well last time. I'm recommending we just use the same list. Again, we don't have to, but we really are under kind of a time crunch with the 60 days. And if you want to see that list, I believe Sean can put it up on the board for you.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see that. I actually have gotten some feedback from the last interview process that some people were not big fans of the questions. I haven't seen them yet, so if they're being put up right now, then I'd have to respond to them live, which I guess I'm okay doing, but I haven't seen them.
Are they showing on screen right now?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Okay. I can also email these out directly to commissioners right now.
That would be great.
And this, Sean, is it more than one page?
It is. So I'll pause on this page for a minute, and then I can go to page 2.
Great. I guess I'm talking about not necessarily the application questions, but the interview questions. I imagine we're going to use a standardized list of interview questions so that each applicant gets the same interview.
Yeah, I think what we did before is we used these questions for the interview.
Okay.
And if it's okay, I can take these down and send the email right now to commissioners.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, here's, I think, what I'd suggest. Let's see. Yeah, I think everything else is just an announcement. We could show you that also, but it's simply an announcement of that we're doing this. But if these questions seem pretty generic to me, but if they're not acceptable, then I guess we would have to discuss it at the meeting next week and hold off on making our announcement that we're open for applications until after next week.
Yeah, that's like I said, I haven't seen these questions before, and would just appreciate the opportunity to review them. I want to make sure that that we're either using a standardized set of questions from that's generated for the city, like we did when we were doing the interviews for the interim director position, or that all the commissioners have an opportunity to participate in the formation of the questions, and that participation could be as simple as that all four of us get an opportunity to read them and say, "Yep, that's great." I just want to make sure that we all get to participate in that process. And I do understand the time crunch, and I don't think it necessarily needs to take a long time. I just want to make sure that I get a chance to look as one of the four members of this panel. Sorry, Commissioner Bachmann, well, I'm not calling on you, but I'm going to stop talking.
Commissioner Bachmann, go ahead.
I agree with Commissioner Adams. I think let's take a week, look at them, finalize them next Wednesday. That put a 2-week limit on the response time. That gives us 2 weeks to interview before the next business meeting, and then we can make the decision that quickly, I think. I would suggest that these were the questions when I was filing to be appointed, and they're generic. So, they talk about what issues, but they don't specify. The issues are always changing. So I think that we have a week to get everybody familiar with them, and then we can finalize the wording next week and push on.
Okay, well, let's, yes, Deputy Director Dials, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to, we'll make sure this goes on the agenda for next week's meeting. Looking at like just a 2-week timeline, and in that 2-week timeline, after the applications are received, you probably would want another, depending on how many applicants you get, at least a week and a half or so for commissioners to interview. So we may have to have a special meeting, but we may not. We may make the September, if you all are discussing it at the September 13th regular meeting, you may still have time to fit it all in.
Yeah, I think we can do it. The key is that once we close after 2 weeks from the 9th of this month, and then we get right on the interviews, I think we can get it done.
Okay, well, that's what we're going to do then. So let's move on to the next agenda item, which is Butler Prazi fountain plaque request.
Great. So while we are bringing Mike Gardner Mike Gardner is the liaison to the Parks Foundation, and tonight he wants to present a proposal to place a plaque at the Butler Prazi fountain, in the location that would commemorate the restoration project the foundation is currently raising funds for. This item tonight is just for information only and would be placed on a business meeting agenda for action at your direction tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Gardner.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate, good evening, Commission. Appreciate being here tonight. And the main reason that we're coming to you to kind of present our request on a future plaque for the restoration project that we hope to have fully funded by the end of the year is because the plaque itself is somewhat part of our campaign strategy for fundraising in the community. We, as you know, and hopefully I did put all the commissioners' names on our emailing list for a newsletter. We try to update the community, all interested parties on a monthly basis on the progress that we're making on the campaign to raise funds for the Butler Grazie Fountain restoration. We the steering committee that was formed from the Parks Foundation board has been busily having meetings and meeting with local groups from the social support groups that we have in our community, like Rotary, Kiwanis, Elks, that kind of thing, to tabling events. So we tabled at the 4th of July celebration in Lithia Park, and we've also been tabling at the band concerts, just trying to get the word out to folks and you know, make sure the community is totally involved in this process. That's the only way we're going to make it to our goal of raising the $800,000 that we've established as our campaign goal. The reason the plaque came up is I believe, I mean, I would think that when we're successful in fundraising and hopefully this project moves forward in 2024, that we would have a plaque commemorating the effort to restore the fountain in 2023-24, which is our goal. For any of you that have looked, and maybe Sean could even put up a photo of share the screen of, you know, the current plaque that's up there. Well, actually, there's 3 plaques currently at the fountain. There's one that's embedded in the concrete, which recognizes Gwynn Butler and Don Perazzi, who were the original purchasers of the fountain at the Pan Pacific International Expo in 1915. And then the other plaques that are there are the 1987 restoration plaque, which Sean put up first, and you can see it references some of the people that worked on the project, as well as the major donors, major funding by at the bottom there, with several different names on it, of mostly businesses, some families, but a lot more businesses than I thought would have, than I expected to read there. But we are looking to do a plaque similar to this when the campaign is complete. And one of the tools that we use as we're out campaigning is asking donations of certain amounts to try to get us closer to our goal as quickly as possible. Maybe Sean, could you put up the campaign goal page? So this is, we have a full campaign plan that we're using to track our progress as we move to our goal. Real quickly, if you look at the 3rd column from the right on here, this is actually from almost a month ago. We've updated it a couple of times, but this is one we have right now. And you can see at the bottom that we've already raised $428,000 towards the campaign goal of $800,000. But what this graph shows is how we expect to get to our final goal. As you can see, the top level is donations of $200,000 or more. We actually have 2 already. One is directly from the Parks Foundation, which put together over $220,000 to begin the campaign. And we also had one generous $200,000 donation here shortly after the 4th of July when we kicked off the campaign. But as you go down the list, you'll see that we're hopeful that we can get at least $100,000 donation, one $50,000 donation, several $20,000 donations, and the same with $10,000. If you add up all those, if you add up all of those potential donors, it's actually only a list of between 15 and 18 names, which is similar to the current plaque that's at the fountain. And the Parks Foundation decided that we would like to put a $10,000 limit on what it would take to get your name on the plaque to help us in our fundraising efforts moving forward. The reason I'm coming to you this early in the process is because I realize that this is a non-standard plaque for Lithia Park, and it will have to be approved at a later date. But this is to give you an idea of what we think we'll have for the donations and the amount of names that would be possibly on the plaque to commemorate the effort that was put forward in this time frame, the 23-24 time frame, as opposed to the 1987 plaque that once again recognizes the businesses and individuals that contributed to that restoration project. So I'm just here basically tonight to kind of front load our request for a plaque so that we can use that in our campaign as we move forward. Not everyone is committed, or not every donor, has to have their name on a plaque, or that isn't the reason they donate. But quite frankly, a lot of people do have that mindset. In other words, they tend to give more money if they can be recognized, in a plaque, a memorial plaque at the fountain would be one way that we might be able to increase the giving from individuals. So that's kind of just a brief rundown of what we would like the commission to consider moving forward, and that's the main reason why I would come to you at this point in our campaign, is so that we could potentially use this as a strategy as we reach out to major donors in the community and move this campaign forward.
I'd like to just add something, because this is a public meeting, and you talked about the goal being $800,000. And I just want to add that my understanding is that $600,000 of that is to restore the APRC fountain. The other $200,000 very prudently is to be set aside for the long-term maintenance.
That is correct. Similar to the Ashland Japanese Garden, the goal is not only to restore or create a facility, but to hopefully have a maintenance fund to carry it on into the future. And the Parks Foundation both commissioned a review of the facility before we even undertook this project. So that's where we're getting our numbers for what we think it's going to cost to restore the fountain and the site. But we also hired the same consultant to give us a maintenance plan into the future, which we hope to fund with this $200,000 in campaign fundraising that we do. So, other questions on that? I guess I just want to make it clear that we don't have a final plaque or anything like that. But I guess what I wanted to point out with the campaign goal page and the amount of names that we could generate if we set this threshold at $10,000, a $10,000 and above donation would allow you to be on a future plaque. I guess that's our ask at this time, is that you would find that to be a reasonable request and that we could move forward with that strategy as we continue our fundraising.
Commissioner Bachman, unmute.
I got it. Two questions. One, are you running into, or do you have a sense that this will incentivize higher giving? Or do you have some evidence or sense of that?
You know, the only evidence is probably anecdotal from previous campaigns that I haven't been on, but that other people that are on our steering committee suggest that you may run into that situation where you know, just hypothetically, someone may be thinking about donating $5,000, but if they can get their name on the historic plaque for 10,000, maybe they'll up their donation. You know, I don't know that will absolutely happen, but I'm sure it does happen and it could happen.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. I've never seen a fundraising campaign, and I've been part of or near a bunch of them, including Performing Arts Center and a school district, that sort of thing. Didn't have something like this. Name on the back of a seed or name on a brick. You know, it's just part of the process. So I think it's a good idea to do that. And the other one was, is there some, can a person decide whether to donate toward the restoration or the maintenance as an individual donation going to a specific end? I'm just curious. I'm not sure that's of any value to do that, but it might, some people might have a preference.
You know, they could, and if they did, we could do that. I mean, obviously our goal is to raise the $600,000 for the project. But our intent is not to stop there. Our intent is to go to the $800,000 number and make sure, like, once again, similar to the Ashland Japanese Garden, is to make sure that there's some, you know, that you have a plan moving forward. In other words, you can spend $600,000 and restore the fountain, and then if you don't do anything with it for the next 30 years, it'll end up like it is right now. So, you know, the plan is to have regular maintenance that's scheduled, that's notated, that we know what we're going to need to do into the future, and that'll help preserve the project that we undertake for the next generation or two.
Yeah, I could see, you know, a campaign every 3 to 5 years or something to keep that maintenance fund healthy.
And that would be, you know, that would be another thing. Or once you reach your goal, all the additional monies that might come in would go towards maintenance of the facility into the future. But we thought it was prudent, and I think it's a responsible way to look at a major project like this, is to not only this is what it's going to cost, but this is what it's going to cost to maintain it into the future. Understanding that APRC, you know, doesn't have the resources or sometimes the expertise to do everything that's needed. So a separate maintenance fund for a facility is important.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Commissioner Lewis.
Yeah, as a member of the foundation and also a member of the Plaques and Memorials Subcommittee, this is pretty conceptual at this point, but we wanted to give the commissioners a heads up that because there's a certain timeline involved here. And as you've noticed in the past, Plaques and Memorials has come to you with non-standard policy and our projects that need to be talked about by the full commission. So until we get a finalized design, we just like the commission to understand that this is where we're moving and this is what we'd like to do. And I think, as Commissioner Lott mentioned, of the maintenance fund, and also Mr. Gardner, the maintenance fund is really the key to this. that would be the last plaque we'll need if we have a maintenance fund. We won't have to go and as we know, in 30 years, the decimal point will be moved even farther. So it's not uncommon for communities to maintain their artwork, and so I think it's important that we send a message that this is something that the commission will finalize at some point when we get a final design. And so yeah, this will be helpful at some point in the future.
Commissioner Adams.
I think because this is a study group, we don't make any formal motions or votes, so I'll just speak to my personal opinion too, which is this all makes a lot of sense to me. There is something about having your name on something beautiful that's meaningful to people. I agree with Commissioner Bachmann that it's a fairly standard part of most major fundraising efforts. I think it's consistent with what we already have at the fountain. I love the part about a maintenance fund in addition to a creation fund. So I anticipate supporting this without hesitation myself.
Well, I want to give a little different perspective. I think that the project is something I wholeheartedly support. I think the idea of having donors listed on the plaque is reasonable, and it is precedent for it, etc. My issue is that if you look at the whole park as a whole, and you look at the actually one of our recent decisions, which was we said we'll put a plaque at the lower duck pond commemorating the people that donors wanted to commemorate, and that was approximately $25,000 donation, and it was for the majority of the pool duck pond filtering system. So what we kind of, in that sense, you could say we set a price for what it takes to get a plaque in Lithia Park for 25 years. So this plaque would be basically in perpetuity. I mean, that's the idea, I think. And as Mike Gardner explained it to me, is that you keep if they're going to do another restoration 100 years from now or whatever, that would be side by side with these, and it all is history. You kind of see what happened over time. That all makes sense. But it is going to be there in perpetuity. So we're saying here in this case, for $10,000, you get to put your name on a plaque in Lithia Park. So it's we don't really have any, and that's kind of the problem, is we don't have any standard for, hey, this is what it should take. But we do have some recent comparables. And so I would advocate for a larger amount to be more in line with some of our past. And I know that this is a bit problematic because for the fundraisers, because it kind of narrows the who is going to be able to come up with that kind of money. But anyway, I just, that's my thinking, is that we should consider a larger amount, because this does get your name in Lithia Park basically forever. Yes, Commissioner Adams.
I think it would be an interesting conversation at some point to decide on what a threshold level was. When we were talking about the plaque at the duck pond, I was not aware that we were making that decision. I'm not sure that I agree that the threshold should be 25,000. I also think that the plaques and the presence of the honoree names is really different between these two plaques. If I'm counting right on what Mike showed us, we're talking about a plaque with somewhere around 18 names on it, as opposed to a plaque that had 2 names, I guess not a quote, but a saying, the swan's mate for life, and an illustration. It's really a plaque very specifically honoring those two wonderful people that enjoyed our park so much, and has a very different feel than having your name as one of a list of 18. And so, if at some point in the future we have a discussion of if we have threshold values that we want to set for a certain period of time, I think getting a little bit into the weeds and the nuance and what do we mean by a specific honorary plaque versus being on a list. We of course have plaques, the wonderful memorial that we're doing in the Redwood Grove, where we're honoring a special member of our community and not necessarily honoring a donation to the park. I think that in that particular case, the bench itself is a lovely donation to the park, but we weren't setting threshold values there, and I don't know that we need to do that ad hoc in this. I think that the Friends of the foundation has been thoughtful in setting thresholds, and I'm generally supportive of it from my point of view.
Commissioner Lewis.
There's a park at the parking lot where the ice skating rink is, and I think the Rotary was very good about contributing to that, and we even allowed them to advertise. I mean, it's the Rotary, so it's not like a commercial entity, but I'm not sure I remember how much money they contributed to get the name on some form of side rink barrier or something. So we've allowed advertising at the baseball field. I'm not, how you put a number on these is always, they're not all the same. So we should look at them separately and not as a one entity. So it seems like I would hope that the recommendation from the foundation would be taken seriously. What we decide as an appropriate amount would be listened to and discussed later.
Go ahead, Mr. Gardner.
Well, I just wanted to say that, I totally get that this is a non-standard request, and I totally get that the commission would like to set the parameters for this sign and future signs. We as the steering committee for the foundation have thoroughly thought out our strategy for our fundraising. In fact, we had a long, and Jim can corroborate that, we had a long discussion. It was like, well, should it be 20? Should it be 10? How many people is that going to mean? What does that mean for our ability to go out and secure, larger donations? And I guess I just want to express to the commission, and will abide by whatever decision you make, that it's really, the only reason we're coming to you is because we need to know the guidelines, and then we're going to be out talking to the community, trying to raise these funds. If we're not successful, then guess what? The Butler Proxy Fund doesn't get restored, and we're left with what we currently have. Not that this decision is going to, not let the campaign happen, but I'm just saying, it's actually, for any of you that have fundraised out there, it's not an easy job, and you need to have several tools in your toolkit when you meet with prospective donors, and when you try to convince them that this is a worthwhile project that that they should be part of. And so we're just trying to set the guidelines for what we can do, because we're already lining up people that we're going to talk to. Like I said, not everyone cares about getting their name on a plaque, but to some people it does make a difference. And if I could go out tomorrow and find 3 people that wanted to give $100,000 a piece, we'd be done with the campaign, and I would have a small list to ask to be placed on a plaque. But I don't necessarily think it's gonna go that way, so that's why we're coming to you at this stage in the game, just because we're a month into our campaign. We only have 5 months left under our guidelines. I mean, we'll go after it as long as we need to, but we'd really like to get on it and make some serious progress and be close to the finish line by the end of the year, when a lot of people tend to give more because of tax purposes, for us to accomplish our goal. So, like I said, we understand that it's a commission decision. We just need to know the guidelines so that we don't go out and sell something that we can't on the campaign trail. So, I realize you're not going to make a decision today. Our recommendation or our request would be that you would consider a $10,000 threshold, given, and once again, you can, Sean could send out this goal sheet, that kind of specifies, we don't think we're going to get that many people that are giving large amounts, but we still want to have a tool to hopefully be able to secure those larger donations. So
Thank you.
I'll leave you with that.
So I think it's time to move on. And as Mr. Gardner stated, next week, we will need to approve this or not approve this non-conforming plat. And I don't hear anyone besides myself who has concern about the 10,000 amount. If there is somebody else, they need to speak up now, because that will make a difference. So since there isn't, I think we have a pretty clear idea of where we're going for next week. And we have unless something radically changes, it looks like the foundation will come to us with a request for a $10,000 donation limit, along with the rest of the non-conforming plat.
But do you want me to get with Rachel and just make a formal recommendation?
Yeah, we need to have something in writing before when the package goes out tomorrow, I guess.
Okay.
Tomorrow? No, or tomorrow or Friday.
Well, I mean, it's a simple request. I'll send a 1-sentence request to Rachel, and if you could just incorporate it in whatever motion you have, then you can debate it and we'll understand the outcome. Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a great evening.
Okay. Where are we here? All right, next on the agenda, conversation cluster seating project. I believe, I'm not sure who from staff is going to kick this off.
Superintendent Glatt is going to be talking about this.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen so I can walk through this. And just give me a sec. It's on this particular laptop. It always blocks my controls when I share my screen. Let's see if I can get it to go to a slideshow with a keyboard. All right, so I presented to the commission some time ago about this concept of conversation clusters that was supported by the Livable Ashland Alliance and Director Black. And I did make an application to the AARP Community Challenge Grant. We were not funded in that grant. And of course, subsequently, Director Black has resigned. So I took some time with Chair Lant, and we looked at the project and have just a slightly modified version to propose. To recap what the demonstration project would do, it would pilot 3 styles of conversational seating in 3 different parks and solicit community feedback. Since it's not funded by the challenge grant, but Director Black had set aside about $6,000 in the CIP budget. When I applied for the community challenge grant, I we budgeted for permanent metal benches that have a much longer life than our in-house made wooden benches. And you'll see that's one of the modifications to bring what was more like a $13,000 budget back down under the $6,000 that was set aside. So let me just walk you through 3 locations. I guess I'm not the best photographer of Lithia Park, but you get the idea on this cloudy day where we were talking about, we are looking at a spot on the front green near the iconic sign. And Chair Lant is suggesting that this would be for stacking chairs. We, as a pilot, we would probably be purchasing just 20 stacking chairs in about a $50 range, metal chairs of some kind. Not low slung back chairs, but chairs that even older adults can get up and out of. And Chair Lant suggested stacking them in this corner toward Winburn Way there, on so that they're kind of out of the watering and mowing area. People will move them and we will restack. Now, I want to tell you, I can't see any of you. If you have a question as I go, please just speak up.
I do. I just want to actually just a comment. You sort of inferred that these were these were my recommendations, and I just want to make it clear that, or at least my understanding is, these are staff recommendations, but they're based on a conversation. I was on site and gave some feedback, but my understanding is these are staff recommendations, not my recommendations.
Thank you for that clarification. This is absolutely coming from staff and from our affiliation with the community group Livable Ashland Alliance. The modifications, this modification of, rather than placing it on the rear of this area, but to place it toward the front. So I think I'll just move forward and name what we're proposing now. So this is at Garfield Park. And the suggestion here is for a conversation cluster of 3 benches in a semicircle. And let me just show you, a little mock-up of what that might look like. And the suggestion now is to build off an area that has an existing wooden bench and to place 2 more wooden benches by the sides. The staff would probably update the wood on the existing one so they would all look consistent. There, so again, the semicircle. And then the third location is Glenwood Park, and we're looking at 4 benches in a circle. The reason to do 4 rather than say 5 is just to keep the circle of a size where people can hear each other across the circle. I believe in the last picture we were looking at Garfield at 5-foot benches. Here we'd probably use 6-foot benches, 5-foot because that's what's already there in Garfield, and 6-foot here because that is the kind of a standard size that people tend to be more comfortable having 2 people on a bench if it's a little bit wider. So in Glenwood Park, there is this front corner of the park. Let's see, this is the, oops, where's my cursor? There it is. So this is the view from the street there. Actually, maybe somebody can help me out with the name of the street that runs past the front of Glenwood Park.
Ashland Street.
No, that is part of Ashland Street. That's right. So this is the view from the front, and this area, you can actually see the brown grass here. Irrigation staff has struggled to adequately irrigate it. It's just been a real problem area. In here, there is some St. John's wort that isn't particularly wonderful. There's some mulch. It's got some proximity to shade trees. All of the locations we're trying to think in terms of shade. So somewhere in here, there could be an area designated. And staff are recommending in this area decomposed granite pad as the lowest maintenance challenge for them. And then the benches themselves, I think we saw a little glimpse of that up here. The benches are set in a little concrete below the ground level. In this particular situation, the ground is worn away and probably will need to be filled back in as part of this process. So simpler benches, still 3 locations. Part of the concept of the demonstration project is to have that variety and collect feedback from the community. So there would be some publicity to really let the community know that these are available, and probably some signage with a QR code for people to go to a survey and comment on which configuration they like. And of course, some of the feedback will be in the form of, do the chairs stay in Lithia Park, the movable chairs, or does that, it's a grand experiment to invest a more modest amount of money and just see whether the community can respect those chairs and let everybody use them, or whether they're just going to disappear and it doesn't work. But we can't know that till we give it a try. I think that was my last slide. Yes, let me stop share and come back. And now I can see you if you have questions.
Any commissioners have questions? This will be coming back to us next week for an up and down vote on whether we're going to move forward with this or not.
I guess my main question just has to do with, with the recent real estate acquisitions and things like that. What is the state of our CIP? I know that we're, the budget that we've looked at before has become a little bit, things have changed, and I don't know how things have changed. And so it just makes me wonder, where's this coming from? Is there anything that we are sacrificing to have this project happen?
It's a good question. Let me take that. This was a line item in our budget, so we aren't taking from anything to do this project. On the other hand, we are going to be probably at the September meeting. We'll be coming back with a modified CIP for us to look at. And yes, there's going to be some major changes because of the fact that we've had some properties come up for sale that have been on our radar for the last 30 years that are critical to keeping trails, some very popular trails, open. And so, yes, because of that, we're going to make modifications. And, yes, the $6,000 could be used towards that. But you know what, it's such a small amount, and it's an initiative that we've got community partners with. And we're going to be able to make our CIP budget work. It just means that there's going to be some things that we had planned to do in this biennium that will not happen this biennium. And so that's basically as best that I can answer now. I'll be getting with staff to looking at that CIP, and then now the changes, and a proposal will come to the full commission probably at a study session in September, and then for the main meeting in September. So we're going to have to talk about look ahead later, but obviously that needs to go on the look ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner Adams.
Thank you. I had one other more logistical question around the 4 benches in Glenwood Park. I haven't spent a ton of time in that park, but I have been there a number of times. Those 2 streets on that corner are they're not high traffic streets, but they're certainly not no traffic streets. And I know that, like, if Commissioner Bachman and I were having a conversation in that park, we would not be sitting there right behind that sign. We'd be picking a place deeper into the park that's quieter, more shady, to enjoy the space. And I just wonder about the placement of those benches right next to the road. I think part of the reason why that's a little bit of a dead space in the park is that it's actually not the ideal place to hang out and have a conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to address that. First of all, I'd be very open to another location in the park. That general area was recommended by Director Black. First of all, because some of the other areas he didn't want to set up benches where it might interfere with frisbee and ball throwing, to break up the broader grassy areas. I personally don't live in that area. I have 3 other parks that I frequently visit. So you may have a better firsthand knowledge of the sound level. We did consider the issue of being close to the road. On the other hand, it does have, or maybe I'm confusing it with the Garfield location that looks beautifully, is also a little close to the roads, but looks beautifully out on Grizzly Peak there. So, there's many uses in every one of our parks, and we were definitely looking for a shady spot. I think Director Black's original idea was a little farther in and taking up some of the grass. Commissioner Lunt, you were recommending going more into the St. John's ward, but all of that is negotiable, and we would welcome your direction as a commission.
I haven't spent enough time in the park, to be honest, to be able to tell you where it is. Just enough time to go, okay, I can remember those 2 streets, and they get some traffic. It's not, it's certainly not Siskiyou Boulevard or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're not going to decide that tonight.
No.
I think we need to move forward, and we might have to do something like approve the other 2 sites and conceptually approve this to be with specific location to be determined. There's a lot of other factors involved. Irrigation is also another thing that we try to not get right in the middle of that, because then you have spots that don't get watered correctly.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of considerations, but I don't think we can do anything about that tonight. So I'm just, we've got our presentation. I think we'll come back tomorrow, next week. And if commissioners are not satisfied with that location, then we can provisionally okay it with the final site, to be determined after whatever process. So I'm going to move us on to, thank you very much, Superintendent, for your presentation. And I'm going to move us on to the next agenda item. Okay, which is restriction on alcohol use in parks. I believe Deputy Director Dials is going to lead that.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Lunt. So I want to back up and kind of just go over kind of where we started and where we're at right now. So back in January of 2020, the commission approved the recommendation for an ordinance change, 10.68.090. It's called Intoxicating Liquors Prohibited. The motion, I'm going to pull up, I'm going to share my screen here and show you the actual motion. So this is the motion that was approved by the Parks Commission, or sorry, the language. Basically, it's leaving it is unlawful for any person to take any intoxicating liquor or beverage into any portion of the public parks of the city except as authorized by the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission, consistent with established parks rules and regulations. And then basically taking out A, B, C, and D, which talks about the areas where it is allowed. So currently the places that alcohol is allowed is the the Kaye Guanajuato. There's a section for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. There's also the Oaknell Golf Course, and the extension area, which is located between North Main Street and Winburn Way, as transported through. So those are the 4 that would be removed, and it would be as approved by the Parks and Recreation with rules and guidelines. So this was the language that the commission approved at the time. This language I am planning on taking to the city attorney to have them take a look before this goes to council. So basically the commission approved this and said, yes, we want you to move forward, but we also want you to have rules and guidelines established before it goes to city council, which makes a lot of sense. But then COVID-19 happened and we were sidelined with a lot of other things. So now where we're at is one of the current goals for the Parks Commission is to support opportunities for community building through programs and events in our parks, open spaces, and trail networks. So that with that goal in mind, we are revisiting this change to the ordinance and establishing rules and guidelines. So back in when I received input from the Parks Commission back in January of 2020, I'm going to show you and share with you, and this is very drafty. And I apologize for that, but it was the only way that I could kind of get through it, to kind of see where we were at. So I just wanted to kind of talk through this quickly. These were the rules and guidelines that the commission had looked back in 2020. And then I went through, based on the minutes from that meeting, the feedback from the commission at that time, what they were, what feedback they had based on the recommendations that I had presented. And some of the things that we talked about were the locations, like do we want to call out the locations? Do we want it to be bigger than just Lithia Park? Do we want specific locations like the Butler Bandshell, the Feast of Woolon, historically called the Roper Grove, the ice rink parking lot on Winburn Way? Those were areas that were kind of called out as important areas that the commission might want to consider for service of alcohol. Some of the other things that were talked about and that we brought up even more recently is, in the recommendations that we brought forward, I had said, the applicant must be a 501c3. Well, really, when you look at other organizations and entities that do that allow alcohol, it's not just limited to 501c3. It could be a public or a private event. So that was something else that that I was looking for feedback on. Let's see. Sorry, let me scroll down a little bit. The other things back in 2020 was that there was, sorry, I gotta make my screen bigger, parameters as to when, talking about parameters as to when security will be required rather than leaving it ambivalent. So maybe a definition of what is a small event, what is a medium-sized event, and what is a large event. The other discussion we had were fees. we talked about a percentage of sales versus a flat fee. I think at that time, the fees, we had kind of come to an agreement that the fees would be a base fee rather than doing a percentage, because that would be pretty difficult to dig through receipts and try to figure out what a percentage would be of their event. So let's see. So I think what I'm looking for from the commission is just a discussion on how we want to move forward with the rules and guidelines with locations. Do you want to just make it less specific and do public and private events? And just kind of talking through some of those pieces. And one of the other things I wanted to say, I'm sorry, related to the OLCC. So the OLCC categorizes events. So that they do require you, whether if you're charging money for an alcoholic beverage, or you're asking for a donation or a ticketed event, they do require you to have an area that's cordoned off for events. My recommendation would be, if we're going to move forward, that we would want to make sure that any alcoholic beverages that are in a park area, everything just runs through the LLCC. So it has to be in conjunction with an actual event. Places like, the only place I can think of right now is Bend Metro Parks and Recreation in Central Oregon. They allow groups to actually, when they book a location, they can actually have alcohol, they can bring their own alcohol as long as they get a special permit through Bend Parks and Recreation. But they also have a park ranger to actually check in on that special event, and which is something that we don't have. So that's why my recommendation would be that we just move forward at this time with the OLCC guidelines for events. So that's where I am at this evening, and I'm happy to take any feedback you have on locations or anything that I have up on the screen now. And I can send this out too. It's not coming back to the commission next week. So if anybody wants to look at it, it's in very draft form right now. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate any feedback you all have.
Yes, Commissioner Bachman.
Thank you. Yeah, this whole idea of a ranger to check in just brings up a bigger issue that we keep running into, which is compliance with anything we're trying to have happen, including start and stop times on pickleball courts and staying on trails and what have you. We just don't have any enforcement authority. And it seems to me, I support the general idea, but short of enforcement with either cooperation from our police department or some major change in the way we staff with, a sworn officer under parks control, which I just don't see that happening. It's hard to launch an event that has alcohol without some kind of oversight. That's a big deal.
So yes, you're correct. That is a big deal. What I did actually, I've been looking at what the city of Medford does for their events and what's required. And so for anyone that is having an event within the city of Medford, that's a public or private event on city property, they do require security. So that is part of the agreement that you sign. So my recommendation would be that they have to work with like a security company, or I don't know how the Ashland Police Department is staffed for that. They're probably not staffed to be able to staff public and private events, but there are plenty of security companies within Southern Oregon that would probably jump at the chance to
Yeah, as long as it's an organization that's been sanctioned by the city in some fashion.
Mhm.
And then the other thought is, if I can remember it, the question or comment. Oh, insurance.
Mhm.
I assume that there would have to be some sort of insurance. And I also know from events I've been involved in that in Oregon that if there's liquor being served by somebody, they have to be licensed by the state to actually serve it.
Mhm.
So all those, and I don't think I have all of them, but at least that amount of detail needs to be settled in an application where we know that we're covered legally, that there is some kind of oversight that is recognized. It's not just some fly-by-night security company, those sorts of things. So it's a big question. And I think a lot of, I don't know if you check with Medford, I think maybe some other entities in our general area or even in the state that are doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do have currently, established for when we were renting out the community center in Pioneer Hall. So we do, and for anybody who is using the band shell currently, we do require general liability insurance. It's a 2 million per occurrence. And then for anyone who's doing an event, if the commission moved forward with these rules and guidelines, there would be a liquor liability required as well. So, and that would be something that would be included in the application and as stated in the application.
I yield to Commissioner Adams.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Adams.
So I think, and I'm not sure that my language is going to be exactly right, but to my understanding, there's kind of three main categories of use of alcohol in a public space. The first would be sale of alcohol, and sale of alcohol, as you pointed out, Deputy Director Dials, would include things like if you paid money to be in a bike race and you got a ticket for a pint of beer afterwards and you could buy additional, that ticket would still be considered a purchase of beer. And those requirements around the OLCC are similar to if you were running a bar, right? You need to have a licensed server, you need to have a restricted area in which the consumption of the alcohol would happen. There's quite a few requirements. There would be a step down from that, which is different but similar, which would be an event where alcohol is served, so sort of the classic being a wedding. And if you're serving alcohol at a wedding, you still need a licensed server, but some of the other requirements of sale of alcohol would be a little bit different. And then you'd have a third category, which is open container laws, as in, can I open up a bottle of wine in the front of Lithia Park, pour it into a glass and drink it? And I would suggest, as at least as an initial foray, that we sort of actually focus on category one, which is sale of alcohol at events. And if we, because again, the requirements around that just from the OLCC without us adding our own rules are fairly stringent. And then I think if we achieve success with that without too much trouble, then we could start considering category two. And I think if we were considering category three, it's probably pretty far down the road, because I could see a lot that would be fairly fraught about saying we're gonna get rid of open container rules in our parks. So some cities have decided to do that. I don't think we're there yet. That would be the kind of thing I think that would need some public comment and consideration of risks and benefits and things like that. What are other people's thoughts?
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Lewis.
We already have existing exceptions. Guanajuato is if having dinner is an event, you can have an open container, and I'm not sure how that would be that much different. And the golf course, you can be on the first hole and crack a beer and drink it right there in front of everybody. So we already have a situation existing. So we should kind of look at that and see how that's worked, and whether I would agree with Commissioner Adams, we want to adjust. This is slightly different in the sense that it's on a different type of park property. I mean, Guanajuato, even though it's park property, maybe it's not exactly a park, and the golf course, although pretty much a park-like situation. So since we are already in the business of selling alcohol, it's just a matter of expanding that and do it in a highly regulated way. I think Rachel's graph there, it covers a whole lot of that information that we were just discussing. And if we can tweak it a little bit, which is, I'm sure she's been taking notes for Commissioner Bachmann and Adams as far as, you know, where we want to take this. And I think there's a consensus that we want to look seriously at changing our policy to expanding our policy, I guess it would really be. So, you always look at what we do and how it works, and then expand from there.
So just to interject on what Commissioner Lewis was saying. So yes, currently we do allow, we do have an OLCC permit for the Oak Knoll Golf Course. We do serve beer and wine at that location. The golf course does hold that OLCC license. Secondly, with the CAE, it's really not like, I just want to clarify, people aren't walking around back there with open containers. It's in conjunction with food service at each of the restaurants, and each of the restaurants are required to carry an OLCC license in conjunction with that establishment. So, so with events in a park area or in Lithia Park, we would have business, or whoever the event holder would have the OLCC, temporary OLCC license to be able to serve alcohol in Lithia Park in a certain area, cordoned off for alcohol service.
Commissioner Adams, before you, I recognize you, would you mind if I go back to your earlier comment and make an observation?
No, please go ahead.
I thought you coming up with the 3 different tiers was a useful tool. If we were to use it, if we were just to use the one, the first category, that would be problematic for some fundraising. And I'm thinking of the Japanese Garden. They're really pushing hard to try to make that a self-sustaining part of our system, and they would really like to have events there. You know, maybe a dozen or more events a year, and that they could charge a significant amount for and have alcohol. Weddings, for example. So I'm just thinking, so events not necessarily where they would be charging for the alcohol. So I just think we need to be thinking of that before we limit ourselves to just that category 1. So go ahead, Mr. Adams.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have an issue with that. We'll just have to be thoughtful on that second category of weddings and other similar events that might involve the serving of alcohol. The other thing that I was just going to say is, if we're talking about sale of alcohol at permitted paid events following OLCC guidelines, my personal opinion is that could be in any park. You know, if the, you know, the Rogue River Keepers wanted to have an event in North Mountain Park to support the fish that live in Bear Creek, and they wanted sale of alcohol to be part of that event, and they received permits. I would like to support something like that happening in North Mountain Park. If the Parks Foundation wanted to support the creation of a new splash pad in Garfield Park and wanted to have an event in Garfield Park that involved the sale of alcohol under LCC guidelines, I would be supportive of that. I would like to expand my personal opinion is we should expand our thinking to all parks and not just Lithia Park. I mean, as Commissioner Lewis pointed out, our sale of alcohol is not limited to Lithia Park already.
Yeah, go ahead, Deputy Director Dials, and then Commissioner Bachman.
Sure. I think that currently the city of Medford has their policy is kind of around that same guideline as far as any park. They do have some certain limits in certain parks depending on location, but I can look at that a little bit closer and bring something back.
Go ahead,
Yeah, just-
Commissioner Bachman.
Just a quick comment. I agree with Commissioner Adams in concept. I don't think probably any park, but probably a list of larger parks or parks with facilities, maybe restrooms, that sort of thing. So not all park property, but specific, a list of parks that would support that kind of an event. Because we have some very small little parks scattered around that we wouldn't want to argue with somebody about whether they could put on a little event there, I think. So it could probably, I'm for it. I just would limit it to a subset.
Great. I know how important this is to move forward. I know that there are, I've talked to a number of restaurant owners and business owners that think that moving forward with this policy to allow for alcohol and would open up some awesome fundraising efforts, as well as being able to hold some bigger concert series in the park that could be paid for, with sales of alcoholic beverages. So, with that in mind, I'm going to keep pushing forward on this. I might bring back another draft down the road before it comes back to the commission, because I want to make sure that we do this right. So I will get this, it's scheduled to come back on the agenda in September. So I'll keep moving forward with that and talk to Interim Director Eldridge once she gets on board to see if that's still an adequate timeline.
Thank you, Deputy Director Dials. And I think we've accomplished what we can accomplish on this item tonight. And so we're going to move on. The next item is look ahead.
Do I need to put this up on the screen?
Yes.
Sean, can you pull this up on the screen? Thank you. So coming up at our August regular meeting, which is next week, Superintendent Glatt will bring back the cluster seating project. We will be bringing back the Butler Perazzi plaque request. We will be talking about a real estate purchase, and we may have to move the World Music Festival partnership presentation. The representative from Rogue World Music may not be available, so I'll know that tomorrow. We'll pull that if we need to. The other thing that I heard from tonight is that we would like to have the Commissioner Eldridge's seat on the commission coming back as action. And are we actioning just the interview questions, or you don't want action on the entire process?
Well, the thing was objected to, or wanted more information, was on the question. So unless commissioners want to expand on that, that's what I would see is just the questions. And it may be a very short discussion.
Okay. And then I did hear, I did hear Commissioner Lant say something about the CIP discussion. I am concerned about our timeline right now, and I guess it's something we can wait on for interim director Eldridge to come on board, but perhaps we could have a CIP discussion in October.
I think we need to push that forward. We're really making a lot of decisions here that are changing our.
John, can you stop sharing? Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you.
We have a lot of changes that are happening in the CIP that are just kind of, we basically said, oh yeah, we're just going to do this and we'll figure it out. I believe we need to figure it out sooner rather than later.
Okay, so we may just have to look at pulling some other things off for the study session on 9/6 if we want to do a discussion of the CIP. So.
And if we have to, we could, I don't know that we necessarily have to do it at the study session. Be ideal, but we could just, the September 13th meeting has less on it. So we could, in fact, the Lithia Park Master Plan, I'd ask for that to be moved off of there. So we really only have one item now, so we can for sure get it on the 13th.
Okay, where would you like to move the Lithia Park Master Plan discussion?
I think it's to October is where that's where it should have been already.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there already.
Oh, we just
Well,
had to
it's there.
take it up. Okay.
It's there for the study session, but not for the.
Okay.
I mean, it's not there for the study sessions.
And then I would also add onto the 9/13 regular business meeting, commissioner seat at this point, Commissioner Eldridge's seat. Hopefully the commission could take action at that meeting. We can make it tentative for right now, but I'll put it on there.
Perfect. Are there other items on the look ahead that people wanted to point out or discuss?
The only thing I think about when I'm looking at the look ahead, and I'm not sure what the final version of the Lithia Park Master Plan is going to look like, but there had been conversation in the past about the part of the Lithia Park Master Plan that has to do with the areas in which bicycles would be allowed, and particularly involving the hillside below Glenview Street. There had been some conversation about whether or not the master plan would be changed to strike language about bicycles, or whether we would open up to public forum the discussion of the parts of Lithia Park that could or could not involve the use of bicycles. I'm just wondering what thoughts are on the order.
Well, basically, if you go back to the meeting where this was discussed, the options were either to delete it or to change the language so that there was an opening for change. And that's the plan, is to leave the language that the consultants put in there, leave that language in, but then put further language in that says that this is still under discussion. So that's already been addressed from my perspective.
It looks like we do have under parking lot topics, Lithia Hillside Glenview Trail proposal public input. And that's under parking lot. So is that what you were commenting on, Commissioner Adams?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's going to go through the trails subcommittee. So that will be that process will dictate when that comes up. Oh, and I know what else we need to put on here for our August meeting for next week will be appointments. I'll be talking to commissioners about that, but we'll be making some appointments to address ex-Commissioner Eldridge's committee assignments. I'm not sure we'll get them all taken care of next week, but we'll be working towards that. So I think that needs to be on the agenda.
Okay, I will add that on the agenda. Anything else? Oh, one more thing I'll mention. So the real estate acquisition is coming to the commission next week, on the 9th. And then, if the commission approves that, we've already got it scheduled on the city council agenda. For the 15th, I'll be presenting that real estate acquisition to the council. Okay.
I think we've addressed look ahead. So any items from commissioners or staff that we haven't already heard? Okay, we're heading down the home stretch here. So we have kind of our marching orders. I'll be reaching out to commissioners this week about committee assignments, and we will see everyone next week at our next Wednesday's regular meeting. And thank you for your participation for everybody tonight. And the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.